Meanwhile, O.J. Simpson's daughter has recently made a shocking revelation that has left many stunned. In a candid interview, Arnell Simpson, the eldest child of O.J. Simpson, finally confirmed what many have speculated about her father's involvement in the tragic death of her stepmother, Nicole Brown. According to Arnell, her father's behavior in the days leading up to the murder was highly suspicious, and has led her to question his innocence. She recalled how her father would often become violent and aggressive when he was under the influence of alcohol, which was a common occurrence during his marriage to Nicole. Arnell also revealed that she had witnessed her father's explosive temper firsthand on multiple occasions, which has made her wonder if he was indeed capable of committing such a heinous crime. Furthermore, Arnell expressed her deep regret for not speaking out sooner, fearing that her silence may have contributed to the miscarriage of justice. Her bombshell confession has sparked a heated debate, with many now calling for a re-examination of the evidence and a possible retrial. As the truth behind Nicole Brown's death continues to unravel, one thing is certain: the O.J. Simpson saga is far from over. Orenthal James Simpson, born on July 9, 1947, is commonly known as O.J. Simpson. He was an American former star football running back, actor, and broadcaster. Simpson played in the National Football League for 11 seasons, primarily with the Buffalo Bills. During his time on the field, he earned a reputation as one of the greatest running backs ever. His professional success, however, became overshadowed by his trial and controversial acquittal for the murders of his former wife, Nicole Brown, and her friend Ron Goldman. Simpson's rise to fame began on the high school football fields, and he later played college football for the USC Trojans. He won the prestigious Heisman Trophy as a senior and was selected first overall by the Bills in the 1969 NFL-AFL draft. Over his 9 seasons with the Bills, he received 5 consecutive Pro Bowl and first-team All-Pro selections from 1972 to 1976. He led the league in rushing yards 4 times and rushing touchdowns twice, and he won the points scored title in 1975. Notably, in 1973, he became the first NFL player to rush for more than 2,000 yards in a season, earning the NFL Most Valuable Player award. He remains the only player to achieve this in a 14-game regular season. Simpson holds the record for the single-season yards per game average at 43.1. After retiring with the San Francisco 49ers in 1979, he pursued a career in acting and broadcasting. He was inducted into the College Football Hall of Fame in 1983 and the Pro Football Hall of Fame in 1985. Simpson finished his career with 11,236 rushing yards, placing him second on the NFL's all-time rushing list at the time of his retirement. He was named NFL Player of the Year in 1973 and played in 6 Pro Bowls from 1972 to 1976. Simpson averaged 1,515.40 rushing yards per 14-game season and 5.1 yards per carry, winning the NFL rushing title 4 times. In 2019, he was named to the NFL's 100th anniversary all-time team. Early in his career, he also returned kickoffs, finishing with 33 returns for 990 yards and a touchdown. Simpson played only 1 playoff game during his 11-season Hall of Fame career. In that game, a 1974 divisional round matchup between the Bills and the Pittsburgh Steelers, he was held to 49 rushing yards on 15 carries, along with 3 receptions for 37 yards and a touchdown, as the Bills lost 32-14. He acquired the nickname Juice, a play on OJ, which is a common abbreviation for orange juice. Juice also serves as a colloquial synonym for electricity or power, symbolizing his dynamic presence on the field. The Bills' offensive line during Simpson's peak was nicknamed the Electric Company. Initially, O.J. Simpson found love early in his life and married his childhood sweetheart Marguerite Whitley, whom he met in high school. Even before he took his football career seriously and became a star, football was one of O.J.'s passions, as he also excelled in the movie industry. However, this diversity of career would be the bane of his marriage. The couple had been locked in for a year before O.J. won his first significant trophy, the Heisman Award in 1968. Marguerite and O.J. married at the young age of 19, and they stayed married for more than 10 years. The marriage produced 3 children, Arnell, Jason, and Aaron. Arnell was born in 1968, Jason in 1970, and Aaron in 1977. Like every other marriage, O.J. and Marguerite had their fair share of marital challenges, which started to tear them apart as the marriage went downhill. It resulted in a brief separation between the two. The cause of the downfall of this marriage is often attributed to the busy life O.J. led, as it was revealed that the star mostly stayed away from their shared home because of his demanding work schedule. He lived alone in a lavish Buffalo suburb home while his wife was in charge of their Brentwood mansion. There are also claims that their marriage deteriorated as O.J.'s fame grew. However, Marguerite stayed out of the spotlight throughout this saga, largely influenced by her introverted nature. O.J. recalled that despite his wife's withdrawn personality, leaving her out of his celebrity lifestyle was difficult. He recounted that they couldn't walk down the street without the public fawning over them with their clicking cameras. After Simpson won the Heisman Trophy as the country's most outstanding college football player and got a $650,000 draft contract, he moved his family to New York and settled in the Amherst neighborhood. Marguerite occupied herself with various pursuits, while her husband made his way up as an NFL player. However, they had their issues, and as Whitney revealed in a 1995 interview, they pushed each other to their limits. The couple finally got divorced in March 1979. In June 1980, it was apparent that marital bliss had completely evaporated, as it was allegedly reported that Marguerite threatened to physically assault O.J. and contact the police over his refusal to vacate their Brentwood residence. Aside from O.J.'s celebrity status and mutual immaturity, another issue that affected their marriage was his infidelity and ego. The issues made the marriage falter, leading to their multiple separations in the early 70s. From this point of view, it was quite clear that the strains of O.J.'s fame played a role in the divorce proceedings. But the story of the demise of his first marriage would be incomplete without mentioning the star's 2-year affair with Nicole Brown, who would later become his wife. After the divorce from Simpson, White moved from the Brentwood home with her kids and settled in San Francisco in a new home. She met and fell in love with Louis Rudolph, a transit supervisor there. She married Louis on the 9th of July 1986. The marriage lasted for 5 years, and due to unresolved conflicts, they filed for divorce, which was finalized on the 3rd of July 1991. Whitley forged a career as an interior designer, and during her work, she met her third husband, Thomas. She would later resurface to support O.J. during his murder trials. It all started when O.J. met and got involved with Nicole 2 years before the end of his first marriage. The LA Times reports that 18-year-old Nicole was employed by the Daisy, a renowned nightclub that O.J. frequented. Nicole's cousin reported that the romance between these two grew like wildfire, and although O.J. was a lot older than Nicole, she was the one his athletic heart wanted now. However, O.J. wasn't the lover he used to be. The throes of divorce had probably made him a different man. This was revealed a few months into dating Nicole. It started with a simple suggestion and grew into a forceful demand for Nicole to drop out of school to move in with him. The couple got married in 1985, a marriage that lasted 7 years, producing 2 children, Justin Ryan and Sydney Brooke. In the early stage of their marriage, O.J. gave his wife nothing but public praise, commending how she had complimented his life, especially at the crucial time of his career. However, behind the glitz, glamour, and social media publicity were disturbing signs indicating something was amiss in their marriage. O.J.'s controlling personality was the most obvious of these signs, as he had difficulty letting his wife out of sight. It was reported by family and friends that Nicole was cut off from the world while she was married to O.J. To date, no one knows if it was a way of preventing another divorce, or just O.J.'s newly found overprotective complex. This appalling situation probably made it easier to believe the ugly news of O.J. physically abusing his wife on many occasions. Nicole was in the habit of calling the police after O.J. had allegedly assaulted her. According to the police report, during one such instance, Simpson was heard yelling about how he no longer wanted her in his bed. However, in all of this mess, O.J. was only arrested once, and he successfully defended himself against charges of domestic violence and abuse. Despite the public image of a happy marriage, the reality was far from it. The marriage was marked by a series of disturbing incidents, including physical abuse and controlling behavior. The couple's marriage ended in divorce in 1992, but the consequences of their tumultuous relationship would be felt for years to come. Meanwhile, O.J.'s alleged abuse of his wife seemed to linger for a while because Nicole kept making these allegations at the same time her family supposedly urged her many times to find a middle ground in her marriage and reconcile with her abusive husband. This decision was unwise. The advice for a middle ground was supposedly offered because of the monetary gain and support Nicole's father Louis was receiving from O.J. O.J. had made a profitable investment on behalf of Louis, which increased the Brown family's pocket. The money-minded father-in-law could not come to terms with losing the investment in the event of a divorce, hence his advice. Nicole also noted that the abuse she suffered at the hands of her husband came as a result of confronting him about his affairs with other women. To aggravate the whole situation, it seemed that O.J. was frankly indifferent to his infidelity, as he supposedly told his wife of his affairs with Tony Cayenne. This affair was said to have lasted for a whole year, while Nicole was pregnant with his child. Rumors also had it that a spark existed between Kris Jenner and O.J. while he was still married to Nicole. This scandal was revealed in the documentary Who Killed Nicole. O.J. owned up to something transpiring between him and Jenner in a jacuzzi. However, in an interview, Jenner claimed that she had never had an affair with O.J. Nicole's sister Denise, while testifying to O.J.'s abusive nature, explained what she witnessed on one of O.J.'s abusive tantrums. She described O.J.'s actions as extremely violent, revealing how he initially went upstairs, retrieved his shirt, and then angrily returned downstairs to grab Nicole, throwing her against the wall before ultimately tossing her out of the house. Denise narrated that O.J. demanded they both leave the house, and indeed, he forcibly ejected her as well. She remembered landing on her elbows as the others watched the ugly incident unfold. Nicole revealed that after the incident occurred again, she promptly dialed 911, crying out that O.J. had beaten her mercilessly, causing her severe injuries that needed immediate medical care and hospitalization. Nicole also disclosed how O.J. always turned feral when he was angry. She described his eyes as turning chilly and animalistic, with his athletically built veins popping out. However, for undisclosed reasons, Nicole explained that she agreed with O.J. to lie about the incident at the X-ray lab, telling the doctors that Nicole had fallen out of a bike. No longer able to continue the abusive relationship, devastated and weary, Nicole, after 7 years of endurance, decided to end it all. However, before the divorce, Nicole wrote a parting letter to O.J., detailing how she took the fall and was blamed many times for his infidelity. She also recalled that she had forgiven him to the extent of her capability. On the 15th of October 1992, believing this would conclude the story between Nicole Brown and O.J. Simpson, the couple filed for and got divorced. After their divorce, Nicole took her newfound independence and status as a single mother to heart, moving into a new home. The hefty child support payments from O.J. amounted to $433,500 a month, allowing Nicole to live comfortably. O.J. and Nicole attempted to reconcile between 1992 and October 1993, but it was a mistake as his aggressive behavior remained intact from their previous relationship. Ultimately, Nicole realized her life was in serious danger and started opening up to her close friends about O.J.'s potential harm to her. She even disclosed that O.J. could potentially kill her and escape punishment similar to the infamous incident in 1993. The whole Simpson clan attended the premiere of Naked Gun with Nicole and her kids, visiting Caitlin and 4 of Caitlin's children afterwards. As the family's relationship with O.J. began to deteriorate, by May 1994, Nicole took various precautions to distance herself from him. On the fateful night, Nicole enjoyed dinner with friends and received a call from her mom about misplaced glasses. Their friend, Ron Goldman, volunteered to deliver the glasses to Nicole's home. A few hours later, neighbors noticed a dog at Nicole's residence. The dog's paws were covered in blood. Following the dog's lead, the neighbors discovered Nicole and Ron brutally murdered in her home while her children slept. Nicole's head had been severed, and Ron suffered a severe knife wound. Nicole was laid to rest on June 16, 1994. Following the stabbing deaths of Ron Goldman and O.J. Simpson's ex-wife Nicole Brown, O.J. was immediately recognized as the main suspect, and it was reported that he went into hiding after the incident to avoid surrendering to the authorities, especially after knowing the alleged charges against him. The law enforcement agencies had to take on a high-speed chase of O.J. for over an hour, keeping in mind that he was armed, finally apprehending him, and trying him for the murders of the late Nicole Brown and Ron Goldman. Simpson pleaded not guilty in court during his July 22, 1994 arraignment. The record of physical violence suffered by Brown before their divorce in 1992 was brought into evidence by the district attorney's office. They used the past hostile style behaviors of Simpson as a substantial motive for the murder. However, O.J.'s defense counsel, consisting of F. Lee Bailey, Robert Blazier, Shaw Chapman, Holly, Robert Shapiro, Alan Ditz, and Robert Kardashian, supported O.J. The most consistent defense in favor of O.J. was that the evidence had been tampered with, especially by the racist prosecution spearheaded by Detective Mark Fuhrman, who claimed that he had discovered leather gloves covered in blood at the residence of the accused. The defense rebutted the claims, and logically explained that the glove had zero chance of belonging to O.J. because it was too tiny for his hands. They further claimed in their defense that the evidence had been illicitly planted in O.J.'s residence to frame him for the crime. The trial became a public spectacle where there were two factions supporting and opposing O.J. Simpson. As the case became famous, so did the key players. On October 2, 1995, Judge Ito, after postponing the verdict by one day, declared O.J. Simpson not guilty of killing Ronald Goldman and Nicole Brown Simpson, and immediately acquitted him. But this was not the end of the road for the murder case, because a few months later, Tawny Kitten, the woman O.J. had an affair with during his existing marriage with Nicole, came forward with claims of possessing a sensitive piece of information regarding Brown's murder, which she would only reveal in her memoir. According to The Sun, O.J. had confessed to her that he was responsible for the murder of his wife and her friend. It is probably quite unclear why Tawny hid this information. Nonetheless, Heaton, a journalist, reported to The Sun that Tawny had only contacted him a few weeks before the event of her death concerning this information, and she claimed that people would rather have her dead than let her memoir be released to the public. Notwithstanding the outcome of the trials, the victims' families later sued O.J. for the death of their children. O.J. Simpson was found guilty of the murder of Nicole Brown and Ronald Goldman by a civil court, and was sent to jail. Even after O.J. had served jail time and was released from prison, Goldman's father came forward to sue Simpson for $96 million. Ultimately, a jury awarded both families $35 million in damages. However, O.J. defaulted in payment over the years as he declared bankruptcy. Goldman asserted that O.J. had only paid them a total of $133,000 throughout all these years. Following the highly publicized trials of O.J. Simpson, the Brown family took on the responsibility of caring for Justin and Sydney, the children of O.J., and his late wife Nicole Brown Simpson. However, after O.J.'s acquittal, a custody arrangement had to be established, leading to a contentious battle between the Browns and O.J. The Browns struggled to relinquish custody, particularly when O.J. sought full custody of his children. This dispute culminated in a court case, resulting in the judge's decision to send Justin and Sydney back to live with their father in Brentwood. Winning custody of the children posed a daunting challenge for the Browns, as it is typically favored for biological parents. Despite the complexities of O.J.'s case, the judge's ruling in favor of granting full custody to O.J. came as a surprise. The decision rested on the lack of evidence suggesting O.J.'s involvement in any abuse toward his children, despite the substantial evidence of abuse toward his late wife. The Browns persisted in their pursuit of custody for 5 years, ultimately succeeding in an appeal where the court acknowledged the gravity of the murder case's circumstances. The court granted guardianship to the Browns, but the children expressed their desire to remain with their father, penning a heartfelt letter to the appeals court. This prompted the Browns to withdraw their case and relocate with their father to Florida. Despite this decision, the Browns maintained contact with O.J. out of love for their grandchildren, albeit wearing a metaphorical mask of poise and dignity. As revealed by Brown's sister Tanya, the family emphasized the necessity of maintaining decorum regardless of the circumstances. The Browns continued to be involved in the lives of Justin and Sydney, even though they had lost the custody battle. The custody battle was a long and arduous process, with both sides presenting their cases and arguing for what they believed was in the best interest of the children. The court's decision to grant O.J. full custody was met with surprise and disappointment from the Browns, who had grown close to the children during their time in their care. In the end, the Browns put the needs of the children first, allowing them to remain with their father despite their own reservations. The family's decision to maintain contact with O.J., despite the difficulties of the past, demonstrated their commitment to the well-being of Justin and Sydney. The custody battle was a difficult and trying time for all parties involved, but ultimately the children's needs were prioritized. The Browns' decision to relocate with O.J. to Florida was a significant one, as it allowed the children to maintain a relationship with their father while also having the support of their grandparents. The family's ability to put aside their differences and work towards a common goal was a testament to their love and dedication to Justin and Sydney. Apparently, the apple never falls too far from its tree. O.J.'s older son Jason inherited his temper and became a prime suspect in the murder in 2012. Private Detective William C. accused Jason of being the offender in his book O.J. is Innocent, and I can prove it. Jason Simpson was Margaret's second child, born in 1970, and witnessed the affair between Nicole Brown and his father growing up. The family claimed that Jason had faced many developmental and behavioral challenges as he started abusing alcohol and hard drugs at the early age of 14. This is believed to be the effect of being born in a privileged class. The records disclose that he made attempts to commit suicide twice. It was also rumored that Jason had mental problems and, far worse, a criminal record. According to the records from the police, they found out that Jason had a long history of violent behavior, which had led to his arrest 4 times before the murder of Nicole and Ron. In the year of the murder, Jason had attacked 2 of his girlfriends, in which he nearly murdered one of them. He also had a confrontation with his boss, during which he drew out his kitchen knife and charged at him. With these patterns, it was rational to cast the lot on O.J.'s son, because even though O.J. had a record of physical abuse, he was not skilled with the drawing of a knife, unlike his son. Secondly, Jason has a disorder, an anger disorder to be specific, and because of this, he frequently has violent outbursts. It was also found in Jason's belongings that he had a journal where he wrote down his violent thoughts and desire to harm anyone who came near his treasures. Further delving into the connection between the murder and Jason was the physical evidence found at the crime scene. It was discovered that the fibers on O.J. did not match those of a black knit navy watch cap that was discovered at the scene. It was also noted that, in his regular life, Jason was a solid fan of wearing a watch cap, and as coincidence will come into play, it shows that Jason was wearing the same cap in his photo from March 24, 1993, which was also found at the murder scene with his dog. However, the police failed to check Jason's fingerprints as they solely focused on his father, whose prints were not found at the scene. The skin and blood samples also did not match the DNA of O.J. Furthermore, Ron Goldman was discovered to have damaged hands, which showed that he tried to wrestle with his assailant. Still, Jason was left unscathed, because the Los Angeles police at that time did not consider him a major threat and suspect, so they never bothered to interview him. Another piece of evidence pointing to the fact that Jason may or may not have been the murderer was the blade they found in his closet. It was found out that Jason had a storage full of sharp items, including a knife that looked like a blade involved in the murder. Jason's knives came in different shapes and forms. His favorites were the Swiss and stiletto. When the forensic expert came to examine the knives, he pointed out that the wounds on the victim's head matched the rear of the knives, ruling out the other equipment as an exhibit. Also, a classmate of Jason who attended the Army and Navy Academy spoke with authorities that Jason had undergone special training on how to use a knife skillfully. O.J., on the other hand, might have been a notorious abuser, but he had no knowledge of how to wield a knife, and even the sight of blood disgusted him. Jason also was reported to have been around the scene between the short time of the murder. According to the Los Angeles Police Department, Jason had no one to rely on for an alibi after 9:50 p.m. and was alone. Following the highly publicized trial and subsequent incarceration of their father, O.J. Simpson, the lives of his daughters Arnell and Sydney were forever changed. Arnell, the eldest daughter, was greatly affected emotionally by the circumstances surrounding her mother's death and her father's trial. As a result, she developed a wild spending habit, often splurging money on bags and outfits in an attempt to hide her emotional pain. Her close relations revealed that during this time, Arnell also became an alcoholic, which led to heated fights with her father. In fact, O.J. Simpson even sought to marry her off, simply to get her to leave his house. Arnell's struggles continued as she appeared as a witness during her father's first trial for murder. Years later, in 2008, she testified as a witness for her father during his robbery trial. She also pleaded with the Parole Board of Commissioners to release her father from prison after he had spent 9 years behind bars. Despite her efforts to rebrand her life, Arnell's struggles were constantly overshadowed by her father's notorious past. Her professional life has been hindered by the trial, and she currently makes a living as a fashion show producer. In her leisure time, she also works as a rapper and manages her father's estate, often taking a solid stand for her brother. Arnell has been quite outspoken about her father's innocence, but reports have shown that she and her brother often quarreled over everything, especially her lifestyle. Unlike Arnell, Sydney, the second daughter, has had a rough story. She was merely 8 years old when her mother, Nicole, was murdered, and her father was accused of the crime. Despite the murky details surrounding the incident, Sydney somewhat believes that her father was responsible for her mother's death. This event made Sydney's life a living hell, leaving her with no choice but to constantly live in her father's tainted shadow. Sydney made efforts to evade the media attention, but sadly, Her family name was enough reason to be picked out of any crowd. In 2014, she changed her name to Porsche in a bid to keep away her true identity and live a normal life. Although not a verbal response to questions over the years, changing her name was probably symbolic of forging her independent identity and distancing herself from her father. The trauma of losing her mother at a young age and living in her father's shadow would have undoubtedly taken a major psychological toll on Sydney. Keeping a low public profile has probably allowed Sydney to protect herself emotionally. She reinforces these walls by constantly avoiding the spotlight and maintaining control over telling her story, rather than having it defined by her father's actions. By doing so, Sydney has been able to create a sense of normalcy in her life, away from the constant media attention and scrutiny that comes with being an O.J. Simpson. Following his release from prison, O.J. Simpson's financial struggles continued to mount as he faced further lawsuits from the families of his victims. Fred Goldman, the father of Ron Goldman, came forward to sue Simpson for a staggering $96 million. The lawsuit ultimately resulted in a jury awarding both the Goldman and Brown families $35 million in damages. Despite the court's ruling, Simpson defaulted on his payments over the years, claiming bankruptcy as a means to avoid paying the full amount. The Goldman family asserted that Simpson had only paid them a total of $133,000 throughout the years, a mere fraction of the total amount owed. This lack of payment was a significant blow to the Goldman family, who had been seeking justice and compensation for the loss of their loved one. The fact that Simpson had been able to avoid paying the full amount of the damages was a source of frustration and anger for the family. The Goldman family's lawsuit was not the only financial issue that Simpson faced following his release from prison. He had also accumulated significant debt during his time in prison and was struggling to make ends meet. Despite his efforts to rebuild his life and finances, Simpson was unable to escape the financial consequences of his actions. The fact that Simpson was able to declare bankruptcy and avoid paying the full amount of the damages was a source of controversy. Many felt that Simpson was using the bankruptcy system to avoid taking responsibility for his actions, and that he was not being held accountable for the harm that he had caused. The Goldman family's experience with Simpson's financial issues was a difficult and trying time for them. They had already suffered the loss of their loved one, and were now facing the added stress and frustration of dealing with Simpson's financial avoidance tactics. Despite the challenges that they faced, the Goldman family remained committed to seeking justice and compensation for the loss of their loved one. Following a highly publicized incident, O.J. Simpson went into hiding to avoid surrendering to the authorities, especially after learning of the alleged charges against him. As a result, law enforcement agencies were forced to embark on a high-speed chase of O.J. that lasted for over an hour, keeping in mind that he was armed. The pursuit was a dramatic and intense event that captivated the nation, with many people watching in real time as the events unfolded on live television. The chase began on June 17, 1994, when O.J. Simpson failed to turn himself in as agreed upon with his lawyers and the authorities. Instead, he fled in a white Ford Bronco, driven by his friend Al Cowlings, with police hot on their heels. The slow-speed chase, which reached speeds of up to 60 miles per hour, lasted for approximately 60 miles, and over an hour, weaving through the streets of Los Angeles, and eventually coming to an end in the Brentwood neighborhood. Throughout the pursuit, police were aware that O.J. was armed, which added an extra layer of complexity and danger to the situation. The authorities were determined to apprehend him safely, and the chase was carefully managed to minimize the risk of harm to innocent bystanders. Finally, after what seemed like an eternity, the white Ford Bronco came to a stop, and O.J. Simpson was apprehended by the police. He was subsequently taken into custody and charged with the murders of his ex-wife, Nicole Brown Simpson, and her friend, Ron Goldman, who were found brutally murdered outside Nicole's condominium in Brentwood on June 12, 1994. The dramatic events that unfolded during the high-speed chase were just the beginning of a long and tumultuous trial that would captivate the nation. The trial, which was dubbed the trial of the century, was a media sensation, with many people following the proceedings on live television. In the end, O.J. Simpson was acquitted of the murders, but he was later found liable for the deaths in a civil trial and was ordered to pay millions of dollars in damages to the victims' families. Simpson pleaded not guilty in court during his July 22, 1994 arraignment. The record of physical violence suffered by Nicole Brown before their divorce in 1992 was brought into evidence by the district attorney's office. They used Simpson's past hostile behaviors as a substantial motive for the murder. However, O.J.'s defense counsel, consisting of F. Lee Bailey, Robert Blazier, Sh. Chapman, Holly Robert Shapiro, Alan D. Dershowitz, and Robert Kardashian, supported him vigorously. The most consistent defense in favor of O.J. was that the evidence had been tampered with, particularly by the prosecution, which was led by Detective Mark Fuhrman. Fuhrman claimed to have discovered leather gloves covered in blood at Simpson's residence. The defense rebutted these claims, logically explaining that the glove had no chance of belonging to O.J. because it was too small for his hands. They further argued that the evidence had been illicitly planted in O.J.'s home to frame him for the crime. The trial became a public spectacle, dividing opinions into two factions, one supporting and the other opposing O.J. Simpson. As the case gained notoriety, so did the key players involved, making it a significant moment in American legal history. On October 2, 1995, Judge Ito declared O.J. Simpson not guilty of the murders of Ronald Goldman and Nicole Brown Simpson, immediately acquitting him. This verdict followed a highly publicized trial that captivated the nation. A few months later, Tawny Kitten, a woman who had an affair with O.J. during his marriage to Nicole, came forward with startling claims. She stated that she possessed sensitive information regarding the murder, which she intended to reveal in her memoir. According to her, O.J. had confessed to her that he was responsible for the deaths of his wife and her friend. The reasons for Tawny withholding this information for so long remain unclear. Journalist Heaton reported that Tawny had reached out to him just weeks before her death to discuss this information. She expressed fear for her life, claiming that people would prefer to see her dead rather than allow her memoir to be published. This revelation added another layer to the already complex narrative surrounding O.J. Simpson and the tragic events that unfolded. The implications of Tawny's claims raised questions about the truth behind the murders and the extent of O.J.'s involvement. The public remained captivated by the story as it continued to unfold with new twists and revelations